Welcome to Update from the Hill. I'm Mark Rockburn, joined as always as Northumberland-Peterborough South MP Philip Lawrence. And Philip, I thought we'd go back in time in a little bit and almost to the day of this taping. Do you remember where you were 7 months ago?
7 months ago, that would have been winning the election. I'm looking at the date there. Yeah.
Absolutely. So I thought we would say going into this 7 months ago, certainly thinking of having to deal with a pandemic when you become an MP is not one of the things that you look at as to why you want to become an MP and something that you would think that you'd be dealing with.
Yeah, no, this was completely different than what I expected, and certainly in some ways more challenging. Also, though, candidly, a little bit more rewarding in the fact that I think I've been able to have more of an impact on our community than a traditional backbencher opposition MP. And so we've been able to be out in the community and been out there more than I would have normally, as opposed to just being up in Ottawa, and the debates and discussions are important. But myself and perhaps more importantly, my team have been able to go out there and do things like bring food out to seniors who are struggling through the pandemic. I've had numerous conversations with business owners, and it's satisfying that we've been able to get some of the results and some changes to the legislation that I think have been quite impactful for them. And so have found that part of the work well much harder than I expected, perhaps a little bit more satisfying and rewarding, being able to really impact people's lives.
Philip, you barely got your feet wet as an MP, trying to get trying to figure out what you do, how things operate, and then we were plunged into this. So, who do you look to for help, guidance? You know, there's probably only a handful of people who might have been around during the SARS and SARS episode or pandemic. So, who do you look to look for guidance and help you navigate through this?
Yeah, we're fortunate to have a pretty experienced caucus. Some of the members dating back actually to the Harper era and before then, and to that point, Aaron O'Toole, of course, who's running for leadership. Aaron's been fantastic to me and has been a great mentor. And so Aaron's probably my first call, but in addition to that, there are a number of other folks, including Jamie Schmale. Jamie's quite experienced as well. Well, he's got at least one more term on me, and so Jamie's been excellent. And even in our riding, we're blessed with a number of great former politicians. Former Minister Tabucci, former Minister Bev Oda, Paul Macklin, lots of people, and of course Rick as well. Rick Norlock, I'd be remiss, and Rick gave me some great advice as well. But lots of people to draw upon, and perhaps not as much as a mentorship, but as sort of as almost as siblings going through at the same time. David Piccini, and David, I can't say enough about how well he's worked with me, and we collaborate great, and always there to give me the information I need from the provincial side, and always collaborative. And so it's I'm the beneficiary of having many mentors and many folks I can collaborate with.
So, Philip, during this whole thing, what have you learned thus far?
So um, what what uh, what I've learned is from the night of the election, actually 7 months ago. Holy mackerel! In some ways, it seems like way longer than 7 months, and in some ways, it seems a lot shorter. But what I said that night was that I'm there for everyone, right? So I got 39 or 40% of the vote of those people who voted. So that's equates to, I can't remember the exact number, 27, 28,000 votes. But there's another 70,000 people who either didn't go to vote or didn't vote for me. And so what I've been able to do and experience is get out there and talk to people. Like I said, I've got Jeff Wielden, our Green candidate, working on our team, and Jeff provides a great insight. And so out there in the community, and really just trying to get everyone's everyone's perspective, and when we all come together as a team, that's when we're the strongest. It's through that collaboration, right? So there are times when I will certainly go into the battlefield of ideas, such as ideas as freeing up business and freeing up our job creators, but there's just as many at times as we stretch out our hands and we get some great ideas. And like I said, whether it's from the Green Party, the NDP, or the Liberal Party, if it's a great idea and if it'll help our community, I'm all for it.
You're watching Update from the Hill. I'm Mark Rockburn, joined as always is Northumberland-Peterborough South MP Philip Lawrence. Philip, talking with MPP Pacini, talking with the mayors on a regular basis as I do, I think the one common theme that we've seen during this pandemic is the fact that how all parties have come together, and it doesn't matter what stripe you might wear politically, what community you may live in, if it's Orono, if it's Coburg, if it's Colburn, that everybody has kind of put their silos away and are working together to make this better for the whole entire community.
Yeah, no, it's been impressive actually. I just got off a call with David and all of the mayors, and I don't even know. I couldn't tell you what the political stripes of the mayors are, and I think that's a real tribute to them. We're all working together, David and myself, and it's been amazing just watching the community come together. And I'm hoping that this some of the spirit. I know it'll just be human nature will dissipate, but I'm hoping that some of it continues, and we're able to work as effectively as I think the mayors and your MPP and all of the community representative have come together. And quite frankly, it's shown in the results, right? We are one of the leaders in terms of flattening the curve here in Northumberland and Clarington, and so I think it's fantastic, and I think this community is blessed with great mayors, great municipal leaders, great provincial leaders, and the federal guys trying to figure it out. So.
I was just going to say, how is it federally? Because again, speaking with David yesterday on his show, Queens Park Report, he said that the unity with inside the legislature of everybody trying to work together has probably never been seen before. What's it like at the federal level?
Yeah, right after that comment, I'm not sure if I want to follow with this one, but it is a reality. So I don't think we've been working quite as well as our provincial friends down there. We've unfortunately had some I would say missteps by the federal government, such as attempting to get unlimited abilities to tax and spend, right? So we want to be more consultative, and we certainly have had some wins, such as increasing the wage subsidy, reducing the requirements on for our application for the CEBA, but we continue to have to ask or demand, as opposed to working consultatively, which we would want to be. But I mean, that's part of it, right? So that is democracy, right? And so we will continue to hold the government account, not because we want to win political points, but because by doing so, we improve the programs, like we have with the wage subsidy, like we have with CEBA. We've had a number of wins along that way.
You hear people make comments that now is not the time for political lines to be drawn because of the fact that the situation we are in. But isn't that our democracy and the way that this country has flourished for since we became a nation? Is the fact that during times that the current government needed to be held accountable somewhat?
Yeah, and they all through before I entered politics, I was in business, right? And I always try to in even within our meetings have some type of constructive, creative debate, right? No one of us has the best ideas. No party has an absolute monopoly on the best ideas. It's when we get into those constructive debates. The I guess the golden rule for me is disagree on ideas, but don't be disagreeable. And so what we need to do, and the government, I mean, people don't want us to be a rubber stamp, right? There's a reason why I collect my salary, and that's to represent the people of Northumberland, Peterborough South, and to say, you know what, if this isn't the best idea, let's point out here what is the best idea, right? And if we don't do that, then we're weaker as a country, we're lesser as a country. I think entering into the battlefield of ideas and arguing about these things and letting the best idea come out on top is ultimately what made Canada the best country in the world.
You're watching Update from the Hill. I'm Mark Rockburn, joined as always with Northumberland-Peterborough South MP Philip Lawrence. And Philip, during this whole COVID-19, there's going to be many times once we win this battle where we're going to have to reflect and point out what we did right, what we did wrong, what decisions were made the correct way or wrong way. We now seen this week come out where all along they were saying wearing a face mask wasn't needed, but now we hear this week coming out that if you can't keep that social distancing, that yes, we should wear a face mask. Is this one of those ones where we're going to look back and say maybe that decision might have been made earlier on during this pandemic?
Yeah, I mean, we can argue about why those mistakes were made, but it's unequivocal that mistakes have been made. Waiting to close the borders was a mistake. Dr. Tam now admits that, and so that certainly put us behind and quite frankly cost lives. And so we can argue that in this situation it was first in a generation event, and so mistakes were going to be made. And then with the masks, and by the way, I've got mine right here.
Very nice.
My nice Canadian flag. Thank you to my wife for setting me up with that. When we went to the mass initially at early stages, we were almost looked at like this is silly, right? And we had a number of our members of our caucus, including Garnet Jennis, Matt Genereux, our critic for health, say, should we wear masks? Should we close borders? We were almost made fun of for this. And then it went on the mask to, no, you don't need to, well, if you want to, if it makes you feel good, go ahead. It might help protect other people. To now, it's not a legislative requirement, but they've asked us to do that. And like I said, I will be wearing my mask anytime I go out in public. And so, there have been, I mean, it's undeniable to say that there have been mistakes made. How much we want to hold the government account for that'll be for the Canadian citizens to decide. But for those who say, well, now's not the time, I think in a situation like this, now is absolutely the time, because a second wave could be coming. And so if we've made mistakes on things like masks, on like closing the borders, we might be faced with these decisions again. And if we don't learn from them, if we don't have the government admit we made a mistake and we're going to do better, then we won't do better and we'll repeat it. So it's absolutely the time to have that discussion, have that debate, because quite frankly, we can't afford to wait to have that discussion. And it's not to score political points. It's to make sure that Canada's the most prepared they possibly can be for the second wave if it comes.
David, we're up on our first break. When we come back from break, we're going to talk about the job that Dr. Theresa Tam has done so far, and we'll get an update from you as well on the summer job program as to where that is currently. You're watching Update from the Hill. I'm Mark Rockburn. Don't go away. We'll be back with the second half of the show. Welcome back to Update from the Hill. I'm Mark Rockburn. Joining me as always is Northumberland-Peterborough South MP Philip Lawrence. And Philip, right before break, we were talking about mistakes that were made, and I'm sure everybody will admit at all levels of government that decisions that they made maybe weren't the right decisions at that time. Talk to me about your personal thoughts on how the Chief Public Health Officer of Canada and head of the Public Health Agency, Dr. Theresa Tam, evaluation on her role thus far.
Yeah, so what I want to start out, and I think it's only fairness it dictates, is this is a first in a generation event. We haven't seen anything like this since the Spanish flu, so over 100 years ago. And so I think to say that anyone has had this 110% right, I think is a bit of a fallacy. However, I think it's undeniable that mistakes were made, as I said, with the borders and with the mass and a number of other issues. And so we need to be better. And so as we go forward, I think the most important thing is to learn from our mistakes. And like if we look at countries like Taiwan, like New Zealand, there's no reason why we can't have a better record. And immediately, Taiwan went to, as early as the end of December, went to close their borders to folks from the Wuhan province. Immediately, Taiwan was using these masks, right? So we need to be better, right? I'm not, and ultimately, it's not Dr. Tam's fault. She advises the government. It's the government's fault. The buck stops with Prime Minister Trudeau, and it's not ultimately Dr. Tam who's making these decisions. It's Prime Minister Trudeau, and that's where the failing went.
So how do we get better going forward? Because obviously, all we've heard about is the second wave. The second wave. We look into different Wuhan to be particular, where they have seen somewhat of a second wave once again. Many people say it's coming. So how do we get better?
Yeah. So first of all, it's to learn from our mistakes, right? So as we open up society, it's not open up as it was in 2019. It's got to be a 2020 version. So let's go out in public. Let's wear our masks. Let's keep 6 feet away where we can. Let's test like crazy. And kudos to the Ontario government. They're getting ahead of this. We need to test anyone, everyone. And we also need to potentially look at testing for antibodies going forward, and make sure that we adopt the new normal. If we look at this, unfortunately, the federal government, has been about a half a step behind the whole way, right? A lot of the things that they ended up doing were right, but it was just too slow. Right, we can't afford to stay behind the curve. We've got to get ahead of that curve, right? And so we've got to be adopting things. We've got to be looking at countries that are winning, right? Like Taiwan, like Singapore. What are they doing? So the masks, the social distancing, the testing, the temperature, the enhanced screening, the border controls, right? All these things can be done, and Taiwan's economy is flourishing relative to the rest of the world. So it doesn't have to become at the cost of the economy.
We talk about, Philip, about getting things, the economy rolling once again. We're seeing that a little bit in all the provinces where they're slowly starting to open up. One big factor of many kids in this country is the summer job program, where it's become, very flourishing over the last number of years, where a number of local groups in this riding take advantage of being able to hire summer students for the summer to help them out to go back to college, help them out on a business side. Where does that program sit right now?
Yeah, so it even before COVID, for whatever reason, it was slowed down, delayed, behind, and then COVID hit, and I think they kept trying to redo it. And it's just speculation, but anyways, we were given the heads up, and very late in the game, actually, just a week ago, for the first tranche. And what's happening now is they're doing it in a series of tranches of the successful applicants, and so the bureaucracy is letting us know and letting the folks know. And so we've had 2 tranches so far go out to the summer students program. Um, there was a little bit of miscommunication and misinformation, and even I don't think the prime minister was the most effective communicator on this file, because there hasn't been any increase in funding for the Canada Summer Jobs Program. So I know I've gotten lots of calls to my office from business owners saying, "Hey, can we get a summer student now that they've expanded?" No, they haven't, and all the applications were actually it ended in February. We had the opportunity to add a job or two because of the COVID pandemic, but that's all it was a job or two. And so I just want to make everyone aware that the program really wasn't changed. There was no funding increase. But Aaron O'Toole has actually been out there. So they did introduce the student version of the CERB, where they get $12.50 a month for students who can't find work for COVID-related reasons for the summer. Aaron said, why don't we take some of that money and put in the summer jobs program? And I agree with that. I think that's a great idea because it's much better, and I know the students would much prefer to be out there working, getting that job experience, as opposed to just be paying the $12.50 and not getting the experience that they otherwise would get.
Will this be a scaled down version this year, Philip, then, of the Canada Jobs program, where we're not going to see as many students working? A, because their jobs might not be there at all, where people would normally hire them, and B, because of the fact that funding is put into different places now to help individuals.
The job will be about status quo. There's been a little bit of changes that have happened as some businesses dropped out, but the program is always oversubscribed, and so it was just just taking A and putting B in there for those folks who couldn't have there. So it's about the same. I would have liked to have seen the program doubled or tripled, and the expense relative to the CERB for students is quite a bit less to doing that, right? So you could have believe Aaron's numbers were approximately you could double the program and still have the majority of the students served being paid out as well. So it's about status quo. There's been like I said, a lot of talk around it, a lot of confusion, but really it's status quo.
You're watching Update from the Hill. I'm Mark Rockburn. Joining me is Northumberland-Peterborough South MP Philip Lawrence. And Philip, let's talk about the announcement either I think it was last week or maybe the week before, for seniors payments, where some seniors were getting $300 if they qualified under the old age security, and then $200 for the guaranteed income. Some are saying it's of the seniors will get the 500 total. Some reports say you'll either get the 3 or the 2 and not both. Can you clarify up where with that?
Yeah, so the OAS, which is the $300, which I understand is non-taxable, which is a bit strange because OAS is taxable. So I don't know exactly how that'll work, but that's what they say. That's for every senior. If you're over the age of 65, you're going to get a $300 one-time bump in your OAS. The additional $200 is for the guaranteed income supplement. That, like all GIS, is income tested, and so if you earn believe it's around about $20,000 or more, you're not getting that GIC or GIS supplement. So all students will get 300. For those with less income, will get an additional $200.
Some are saying, Philip, that the money is maybe an insult to seniors that they're getting so little during this time.
Yeah, so the challenge is, and I think where we want to really put our resources are certainly with those folks who are the most vulnerable. For seniors that are doing well. So someone actually referenced John Tory as a senior, so he'll be getting those that $300 check. Does John really need that? I don't know. You can ask Mayor Tory about that. But it's the most vulnerable seniors, right? And for those seniors who might be earning $10,000, $15,000 a year, and their property tax, if they still in their house, might be, if they live in Port Hope or Cobourg, could be $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, and it's not a overly audacious house, right? And now they're getting a grand total of $500, right? And they've seen, I think groceries are going up 5 to 10%. Some of the numbers have pointed out, and so their expenses are going up. Maybe their relatives who would otherwise come and get them and pick them up can't do that because of the COVID. Now they've got to pay for additional taxis and other things like that, and there's lots of additional costs. I don't know if that's hitting the mark. So I don't think that program, although simple and easy to pay out, and I don't know whether it's hitting the mark, to be honest.
So what could we do for these seniors to make it better? Could you see it being that $300 added permanently for a year, or added permanently full time?
Yeah, so the Liberals actually had in their campaign pledge to increase OAS by 10% for over 75 years, over 75s, and they haven't mentioned that. They've been quite quiet about that. So I mean, that could potentially be a solution or something the government might go forward on. I think with seniors in general, we just want to make sure that their burden is reduced. And I would go back and say, we really need to get the economy rolling and moving, because if we're able to get the economy more efficient, more effective, we reduce the cost. And also we need to reduce taxes, right? So we had a 50% increase in the carbon tax over during the pandemic. That increases the cost of everything, right? It's because as much as Elizabeth May and others might say that oil is dead, my cell phone has petroleum in it. My mask has petroleum in. My headset has petroleum in it. The computer I'm looking at you has petroleum in it. All the food that got to the grocery store didn't fly there. It got there because of either rail or more likely truck traffic, all fossil fuels. And so when we increase carbon tax, we increase the expenses on everything. So I would be in favor of scrapping the carbon tax, making life less expensive, get the economy rolling, and quite frankly, as seniors, a lot of that I have spoken to are still working. Either because they have to or by choice. And so if we get the economy rolling again, we'll make sure that they have employment. And employment for seniors in the COVID area is particularly difficult due to the fact that they are a vulnerable population, right? So we need to get society safe so we can make sure that seniors can get back to work.
Philip, just over 1 minute left in the show. Give us an update on where we are with the where we are with the leadership race.
Okay, so all the memberships have been sold, and so that's done. I'm pleased to say I think Aaron did exceptionally well. We will in early July having ballots mailed out. Your potential candidates are Aaron O'Toole, Peter MacKay, Leslyn Lewis, and Derek Sloan. As I've said, I am supporting Aaron O'Toole wholeheartedly. I think Aaron will be a great prime minister, and I look forward to him to being the new leader of the Conservative Party.
And a quick update on the policy convention that was to happen for the Conservatives in the fall.
Pushback, to a date unknown. So it actually probably makes a lot of sense in the fact that we're going to have a new leader, and we want that leader to have us have a say on that policy. And so we will be pushing that back till next year. But please send your emails, give me your policy ideas. We are a grassroots party, and more great ideas will only make our party better.
Philip, thank you as always for joining us this week on Update from the Hill, and I'll see you in 1 week's time.
Awesome. Thanks, Mark. Thanks.
You've been watching Update from the Hill. I'm Mark Rockford. We'll see you in 1 week.